Right, so hello again, and into the next section here, which is how we are going to complete the address information and values. I may as well try and complete them both because they're two sets of fields which are visible at this point here. The first bit I'm going to address is address information. Okay, and obviously there's the on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. So installation address goes without saying that we're talking about where the site is for the installation. This would be important if, for example, you followed my video from earlier about how to clone quotes and you had a single deal but it had multiple sites on it, so therefore you're doing multiple quotes. It would be important to correct the installation address on that one, because the installation address is going to refer to the actual site that you have chosen in this quote. Okay, so that's something that's really important for you to change. It's not a mandatory field, as you can see. There's no red flash on it, but you absolutely, it's critical that you get this correct. If you don't, it won't appear correct in the illustration or the quote templates later. There's a thing here called GraphCBase 641. That's something you can ignore completely. Don't write anything there. That is actually linked to the testing that Smarties are trying to do in order to make the Smarties API work. I can do a little session on the Smarties API for later if you want, but it doesn't work right now anyway. But this is something that's available to them and that they can try and work on it. But so ignore that completely. Sometimes you'll see that it's got lots and lots of letters and numbers in it. You can still ignore it. Never change it, never touch it. It's not for you, it's for them, and when it's working we'll be hiding it, but just for now it's going to be visible. And then the next thing that you need to be interested in is, of course, the billing address, and the billing address is the customer address. So that will be the same regardless of how many quotes you do. It will always be the address of where Simon and Lynette would send their invoices to. So that is the billing address. That must be correct as well, but it shouldn't change from quote to quote. And what's interesting here is my billing address line 2, my billing town, my billing postcode, they're blank. They shouldn't be. So that's something I would do now, is I would go back and see why that was in the actual deal. So I'm guessing that what I've done is I've left those blank in the deal, otherwise it would have pulled through. If it doesn't pull through, that's something I would look at, but again, you can always correct it here by entering values. And an example would be in here, I'm going to put in there BS21 6RR, which is of course our address here, and you know, it wouldn't matter where it was, but that's how you would change that. So that's available now. Then down to values, the next section, if you like. Okay, so, and again, there are some mandatories in here. Now, what I'm going to suggest that you do is that you, on the system technology, you click the drop down and you will see there are a whole series of system technologies that have been pre-created here. Okay, the purpose for these will become important later when we're talking about the suggested products and so on. But if you don't choose one of these here, you can't proceed. If you choose the wrong one, it will then choose the wrong set of suggested products for you as well. So it's really important that you get that get this right. So what you would do here, I'm just going to choose this top one. So trapezoidal roof unoptimized. That's arguably our most common job. So I'm going to click that one there. But remember, it's a mandatory field. Next thing is going to be the system size. Okay, so if you're working on a system size in a pre-sale situation, so you're looking to create this for an illustration, then the system size that comes from the PV-SOL is fine. Or if you haven't done a pre-sale PV-SOL, then whatever you can work out by looking at the roof on Google Earth and measuring it up or whatever, but it's an approximation. So I'm just going to stick something in here now. I'm going to stick in 250 kilowatts. But equally, if when you get a final PV-SOL there, and that's worth noting, when you get a final PV-SOL there, then you are going to make that much more precise. And again, that would be very important if you did a pre-sale illustration quote, as it were. Okay, and then you come back and you clone it to create a post feasibility study one, then that needs to be absolutely accurate. So don't assume that just because there's a value in there that it's going to be right. It needs to be correct at the stage that you are doing your quote here. Okay, battery size kilowatt hours, that's not a mandatory fill right now, because I suppose if it was a mandatory fill, I could put 0 in it if there was no battery at all, or if the kilowatt hour size of the battery was going to be, I don't know, 200, 300, whatever, I would add that in there at this point. And that would be important if it was making calculations about payback or performance or whatever, but it's not doing those things at the moment, and you don't need them, so leave that one blank as it suggested. Another thing to here is called upload image for render image. Okay, so that's important where you have, for example, you want to add a roof into your design, and so it's useful there to add an upload image. Again, it's very straightforward. I don't know if I even have an upload image here, it doesn't really matter, but I'm going to click on that. I can either drag and drop from the server in here, or I can browse for it, and I'm going to do that real quick. You can't see any of this stuff, I don't think, because I think this is happening outside of your I think this is happening outside of where you can see, but I'm just going to put an image in. God knows what that image is. Is it a dummy render image? There you go, open. Okay, and I'm going to attach that. And again, what you have here is something called dummy. That's the word you see there is dummy, and it basically that's what will appear in any document that I create from this as well. Then the Smarties graph. So what you need to do is to upload the Smarties graph, and you do that by clicking the upload image button. And the presumption is that you will have already taken a screen grab of the Smarties graph at that point, and you will have saved it somewhere. And when you've done that, you can then upload the image. And it will add in there. I'm not going to do this unless, well, actually I will do. Well, let me see if I've got one. So again, you can click and drag it, or I can do browse. And let's see. Oh, I have got a dummy Smarties render, so I don't think it's real, but I'm going to stick that in there. And I'm going to attach that. I'm going to just attach that there, and click on the attach. And again, there's a Smarties graph. You will have actually got a real Smarties graph. But this one is just a dummy one. Smarties monthly repayment. Again, that comes from the Smarties quote that you've done. If you haven't done that yet, then it's important that you do that before you go any further here. But for example, if it is, I don't know, monthly repayment is £2,000 or 100, I don't know, £10,000, you would add in the £10,000 in there. Okay, and then feasibility study price. If you add feasibility study price there, it will form part of the quote. So it's really, really important that you're very careful how you do that. At this moment in time, if you're in the quote stage, you don't need to add feasibility study price, because there won't be a feasibility study price at quote stage. When you're in illustration stage, or proposal stage as it's called on here, you would do. So I think the stage I've already chosen to be at is proposal, so I do want it to be in there. So I'm going to add in there £2,000, okay? Because that's what it is. I don't know what it is. You guys will have to know what your feasibility study pricing is, and you would agree that with your line manager. If the feasibility study has been paid at that stage, you would click that, and that will exclude it then from any future pricing or whatever. But that is, as I say, it's important for proposal. It's not important for the quote stage. All right. So we'll leave that blank at the moment. In fact, will I still? Oh, maybe I'll pay it, because I'll click it as paid. I don't know what difference it's going to be, but there you go. Markup, you can't change that because it's a read-only field. Okay. So what I need you to do on this one is to ignore it completely. We're going to make changes to that, and the way that we're going to make changes to that is we're going to make it more dynamic and make it more related to the sort of size of the job, to the distance of the job, to the number of man days, in fact, that will be involved in the job, and also a kind of like a reflection of how complicated the job is likely to be. But Simon and Russell are working on that at the moment, and when they have completed their work on that, they will pass that to me. They'll pass it to me and Jess, and what we'll do is we will build code that will make this markup field much more dynamic. But right now it's set to 45%, and I could talk to you later about how you would make that change, but at this moment in time you can leave that completely blank and ignore it. You can always ignore it. It's being set for you basically by Russell, who determines what that is. And then you have commission total. So okay, this is not a percentage, this is a total commission. Now again, the advice is leave that blank, because you do not need to add commission in there. If there was a situation where you needed to add commission, you'd know about it, because you'd have discussed it with your manager, and your manager would have said add in 2,000, 3,000, 10,000, 100,000 pounds of commission, whatever it is. you would know what that was. But for the most part, you do not need to do that. Also, when it comes to finder's fees, those can be excluded there as well, because finder's fees are a product. And if you have a finder's fee, you can add that as a product later on, and you'll be able to you'll be able to kind of add that into the price, so that you don't need to worry about it. So anyway, commission. If you are needed to use that, if you're required to use that, your manager will tell you about that. Okay, so speak to your manager. Okay, so that's done now with the address information and the value section. So I'll move on to the next bit next. Okay, thank you.